only downside about this build is that it's very, very endgame. You're not going to be able to use it until you're quite literally on the third act of the game, and that's going to be dependent as well on how you play the game. Because for example, you might just be cruising through the story, and if you're not doing like side quests, which is going to be the most important aspect of everything, once you reach the third region of the game, if you're not doing side quests, you're not engaging with side content, you're not farming at night for identifiable items, then you're probably going to be level 30. This build requires for your character to be level 40. So you're going to be level 40 at the end of Act 2, provided that you're actually exploring. So if you're exploring, you're doing night content, you're actually farming and leveling up your character, then at the start of Act 2, you're usually going to be level 39, 40-ish. So yeah, that's when you're going to be able to get this done. So we're talking about the Sir Lancelot's build and armor pieces. It's very simple. The build for Sir Lancelot's actually going to be fairly simple because everything is already going to be built on itself because of the armor and the weapon. So how to get it? Well, first you need to complete the first act of the game because that's going to give you the Excalibur memory, which is something that you need. Once you have the Excalibur memory, you can come into this island on the start of the game. So that's the island where you began the game. You turn down in here, there's a couple of doors. This is the one that you need to go through, and this is going to be locked. Once you unlock it with the Excalibur memory, you're going to be able to enter it, complete this dungeon, and essentially that's going to give you access to the Sir Lancelot gear. So this is essentially the requirements for you to be able to actually use the gear that we have right here. You need 10 dexterity, 15 endurance, and then 18 points into strength. This is the very requirements. This is what you need once you have managed to get this. This is going to be at level 40 now, or 41, I'm not entirely sure, around that mark, 42, 43. Yeah, it's very endgame. Like I said, it is a very, very endgame build. That being said, once you have managed to reach this point, all of your stats are going to go into strength. Now, one thing that you need to have in mind is that we have already built a level Act 1 warrior, a Act 2. This is the Act 3 version, provided that you're doing exploration, and essentially it's going to be a slightly ever improved version of the previous one that we have. There is a link in the video description on the previous builds if you're still on the Act 1, Act 2 or Act 3, depending on what level are you or where are you and what is it that you're going to be using. But essentially, the gist of everything, it's like the previous builds. The more you receive damage, the more powerful that you're going to get them. The same applies for the weapon that you have right in here, the Iron Dice. This is going to increase your physical damage by up to 200%, depending on the missing health. But that 200% is going to be once you have lost the entirety of your health. The rest of everything is also going to be dependent on how much damage have you taken. So for example, below 25% health, this is going to increase below 20% health. This is going to increase your critical damage by 25%, melee critical chance by 25%, and then the attack speed by 25%, and then stamina it's going to increase by 125% whenever your health is below 20%, and then increase your movement speed by 25% whenever your health is below 20%. So every time that your health is below 20%, you're going to receive critical damage, critical hit chance, attack speed, max stamina, and movement speed. But that's not all, because the overall everything, the armor in itself, is going to give you 25% physical damage with your helmet, 30 on the chest piece, that's 55. And then we have 70 right in here, and then we have 90 right here. So ideally you have 105, 115-ish more physical damage if you're using the entirety of the armor. So that's essentially the builds. Not to mention that, like, the armor, dude, this is my favorite armor design in the entirety of the game. I love the colors, I love the plate, I love the helmet, I love everything about this armor. I'm not using any cloak or cape because I think that the armor looks cool on itself like this, but you can basically use whichever thing that you would want to use. So there's a couple of things that you can do with your skill points. First and foremost, you're going to raise to 100 to the maximum. This is going to be your first main focus. The second main focus for DPS is going to be general. As a matter of fact, the first 5 points are going to increase your melee damage by 25%, and this is where you're going to start making a concession, because you're going to decide what is it that you want for your character as you receive more damage. Because remember that this is the ideal thing of your character. Whenever you're losing health, you're below 30% health, you're going to increase your damage, your attack speed, and then also your physical damage is going to increase by 1% for every missing health that the enemy has. And then this is where you're going to start everything else. So for example, if you go into perception, you have critical hits in here. Our character as it is does not deal that many critical hits. We're basing ourselves purely on power and how powerful do we get by losing health. So my advice is that you actually take the one for stamina, because there's a couple of amazing things in here. So taking damage restores your stamina so you can continue attacking, but also when you have full stamina you deal 30% more damage, and this is multiplicative with everything else that you have right in here. So whenever you charge a heavy attack and you're not using the entirety of the stamina, that can be 30% more damage aside from everything else that you already have. Killing enemies is going to restore your stamina. I can't stress enough how important this is, because every time that you kill someone, you immediately want to keep swinging. And then I advise for you to take the overexertion ones, because they're very useful whenever you're spamming attacks. So yeah, it's actually kind of nice. The next thing that we are going to take is going to be on health, and this is going to potentialize everything else that we have on our character. I don't think that we need more max health, but also every enemy that we kill increases our damage by 5%, but healing resets this. This is very important for us not to receive damage, because you have lifesteal on your weapon natively, so you don't want to receive damage. But anyways, when you're receiving damage, then you heal, so that's actually kind of nice. And the same applies for stamina with cruelty, so these two, carnage and cruelty, are actually very nice. And the final two things that I advise for you to take as a max, well, this is, remember, this is if you have a high level character like mine. This is going to increase your max health by 10%, which is also very useful, because this increases your damage by 1% for every 10 points of missing max health. So the more percentage of health that you have and the more damage that you receive, then the more damage that you're going to be dealing. At the end of the day, the ones that I have right in here into health and stamina are going to be nice kind of little things that you should have, but ideally the best and most important things that you're going to take as a must, first and foremost, is going to be the 200 and the general. And that's basically how this build and how this character works. What you want to ideally at all times be doing is take advantage of the range that you have from your weapon. More often than not, you want to be charging heavy attacks, because charge heavy attacks deal AoE damage. But it's also a very, very good idea to spam attacks, because remember that there's actual bonuses that you receive for whenever you are attacking very, very fast. One of them is increasing your attack speed, so that's kind of nice. But ideally, when you feel that you're losing too much stamina and you're fighting large packs of enemies, then what you want to be doing is that you actually want to be charging heavy attacks. The gameplay that I have for you right in here is in the veteran difficulty, and we're still dealing lots of damage. Remember that the more damage that your character receives, the more damage that you're going to deal, and the more damage that you deal, the more lifesteal, because your lifesteal is going to be percentage based. So depending on the amount of damage that you're healing, that's the amount of percentage that you're dealing, that's when you're going to be healing. So whenever you are receiving more damage than the one that you're dishing out, you're going to get stronger. If you're fighting a boss, for example, that's dealing too much damage to you, you're going to reach a point where your character is going to be so strong that he's going to be recuperating that much, because also the bonus armor sets from the Lancelot gear are going to activate alongside with the rest of the things that you have been taking. Anyways, if you like the content, like and never super appreciate it, and also you today, you gorgeous beautiful person. You're indeed a gorgeous and beautiful person. Subscribe to the channel, you're in Discord, and a beautiful day, goodbye.